The story of lying like Cuoi. Once upon a time there was a young man named. From a young age, Cuoi lost both his parents and had to live with his aunt and uncle. He is a cunning guy, especially at tricking people. He is very proficient. A rich old man in the area heard rumors about Cuoi and looked unconvinced. One day, he sent someone to call Cuoi and said, "I heard you are very good at deceiving people. Now I sit here. If you dare trick me into letting me go out the gate, I will immediately reward you with 5 francs. There are people testifying." My cousin scratched his head and replied, "You're sitting here, and if you're on guard, how can you trick you into going out there? If you stand outside the gate, I can trick you into entering the house." Hearing that, the bald old man ran to the gate. But when he arrived, Cuoi clapped his hands and shouted, "There, I tricked you to the gate." The rich man was so depressed because he lost that he wished to give the money to Cuoi. Cuoi's uncle and aunt have a fat pig. One day, while everyone was away, Cuoi called the butcher to his house to sell the pig cheaply for money. Cuoi just told the person to keep it a secret for him and ask for the raw pig's tail back. He found a trick to swallow the pig. He dug a small hole in the ground near the pig pen, stuck his tail into it and pounded the ground very tightly. Waiting for his aunt to return from work, he made a panicked face and said, "Aunt, what an unlucky number. Someone stole our pig. It has gone to hell." Then Cuoi led her aunt to the pig pen and continued, "It's already down both its hind legs. Only the tail remains. Now you hold the tail, don't let it come down, and don't pull too hard or it will break off and ruin the job. I'll use a spade to dig around, hopefully I can catch it back." The aunt heard that she thought someone was really catching pigs. She was both afraid and regretful, urging Cuoi to do it quickly. Cuoi quietly took a spade and dug the ground. The soil loosens, the tail does not naturally pull away from the ground. Seeing that, he shouted loudly, "Stop!" So the pig went to hell. What else can you do? One day, Cuoi and his uncle went to the market. Cuoi carried an empty basket. Suddenly, Cuoi ran ahead, missed him a bit, then took a basket and covered a pile of buffalo shit along the road. When the uncle arrived, Cuoi stubbornly held the basket, saying, "How lucky! I just caught a huge bird. But if I reach in to catch it now, it will slip away. So I quickly bought it and spread a net around it to catch it for sure. This one is great to eat." The uncle was inherently greedy. Hearing what he said, he thought it was true. He quickly returned home to get a net and spread it very carefully on all 4 sides of the basket. Many people gathered to watch. But when Cuoi opened the basket, everyone laughed because they only saw a pile of buffalo dung and no birds. As for the uncle who was deceived by Cuoi, he was so angry that he stopped going to the market and took Cuoi back to fight him in a battle of life and death. Another day, Cuoi and his uncle were hoeing grass in the field. It was scorching hot. Very thirsty, his uncle told him to go home and get some water. As soon as he arrived home, Cuoi looked panicked. Tears were streaming down his face, his mouth was sobbing and he couldn't say a word. "It's so miserable, auntie." He was gored by a buffalo and his intestines were exposed. Now he has stopped breathing and is still lying on the dune. The aunt heard that all she could do was cry out to heaven and earth and then struggled to the fields. As he walked, he hugged his face and cried bitterly. My brother sneaked down the shortcut again, running to the fields. Almost there, he also pretended to be in pain and told him, "Uncle, God harm me. At home, my aunt didn't know how to climb and fell from the attic, causing her face to turn purple and no one knew." The uncle heard it, thought it was true, beat his chest and cried to the sky, then ran home crying all the way. Only when the couple bumped into each other did they realize that the cruel nephew had deceived them. The couple was so angry that they wove a basket and put Cuoi in it. Then the husband alone carried it to the river, intending to throw it into the water. Arriving at the river bank, Cuoi begged, "I'm guilty of my sins, you deserve to be killed. But in this world, I can lie to make a living thanks to a book of lies that has been kept on the kitchen floor for a long time. Now, please think of some blood love and go get that book for me so I can take it with me." Underworld looking for food. Hearing what he said sounded pathetic, the uncle thought it was true, thinking, his hands were tied, the gabion was tied tightly and he couldn't escape anywhere, so he quickly ran back to get the book. While sitting huddled in a basket, he suddenly saw a leper passing by. Cuoi called back, "Hey leper! I used to have swollen skin and rotten flesh like you, but God gave me a chance to sit here, then I was taken into the water to be treated, then lifted up again, and now I'm completely healed. Just open it for me to see." Leper thought it was true, opened the basket for Cuoi, immediately praised the miraculous cure and happily said, "I'm so lucky. Then let me sit here and tie it up for me. There were a few pieces of money that I asked to give to you." Being free, Cuoi waited for the leper to come in, carefully tied the basket and then took the money and went straight. Talking about the uncle who came home and searched the kitchen floor but couldn't find anything, only to realize that he had been tricked again. He was so angry that he stomped back out, without saying a word, kicking the basket and rolling into the river. So the leper went missing. Cuoi followed the river to a bridge, took off his shirt to bathe in the hot weather. He was afraid of leaving some money on the shore that someone would take it, so he took it all into the river. A mandarin on horseback passed by on the bridge and caught a glimpse of a boy diving under the water, with one hand raised high holding what looked like a coin. The mandarin felt greedy, stopped his horse and asked, "Little boy, what are you doing down there?" Cuoi pretended to search and said to the mandarin, "I brought my father a gold bar, a silver bar and a few coins. While playing at the bridge, I accidentally dropped them and lost them all. Now I've been searching all over and can only find a few coins. If I return now, my father will beat me to death." Saying this, Cuoi cried. The mandarin then got off his horse, took off his clothes and told Cuoi, "You get on quickly, so I can go down and take a bath. Go away." His intention was that he wanted to search for it alone. If he found it, he would hide it somewhere so that the gold and silver would be in his hands to enjoy. As he spoke, he waded into the water. Cuoi stepped onto the shore and immediately took out the official's clothes. "To wear?" Quan asked. "What are you doing?" Cuoi replied, "I'm so cold, I need your shirt to keep me warm." "So, what's your name? Where is my hometown?" "My last name is Bai, first name is Dung. I live in Bang Long Commune, Ba La District." After dressing, Cuoi waited for the mandarin to dive into the water, then mounted his horse and galloped away. The officer dived and searched several times but couldn't find anything. Looking up to the shore, he lost both his horse and his clothes. Knowing that he had been tricked by the boy, he was both angry and panicked. Finally, he used some torn clothes left behind by Cuoi to temporarily cover his lower body to run to find Cuoi. He would ask everyone he met, "Did you see the guy Bai Dong who just ran past here?" Hearing that, everyone just smiled. It wasn't until he met a woman who thought he was a scoundrel and teased her that she turned around and scolded him. He knew it was foolish, so he had to keep his mouth shut, then swallowed his anger and went home. We talked again about Cuoi riding his horse back to his aunt and uncle's house. Both husband and wife, especially the husband, were very surprised and didn't understand why they had pushed him into the river for 2 or 10 years, but now he came back dressed properly like that. When asked, Cuoi smiled and replied, "I went down there to meet everyone. Grandparents, father, mother, grandparents. My parents are very rich. But I missed my uncle and aunt so much that I chose a set of clothes, a horse, and a few francs or more up here." Then Cuoi added, "My grandparents still miss you very much and told me to invite you to come visit." The uncle and his wife were so happy to hear that they asked Cuoi, "Can we come down?" Cuoi replied, "It's not difficult, just make the basket the same as when I came down. But I can't carry it, I have to carry it to the riverbank, get into a basket and then I'll roll down." The uncle quickly weaved 2 baskets and brought them to the riverbank. Then the uncle got into one and told it to tie it tightly and throw it down. Seeing the water bubbling, Cuoi clapped his hands and shouted, "Aha! You're taking it." Hearing that, Aunt Cuoi urgently urged her, "Let me come down immediately." The aunt crawled back into the basket and let Cuoi throw it into the river. So from then on, Cuoi inherited the inheritance left by his uncle and aunt. But Cuoi's reckless living soon sold all his real estate. He wanted to go on a trip far away, so he bought food and left home one day. Cuoi came to a mountainous area. There were many elephants here, so Cuoi thought of a plan to catch one. He dug a very wide and very deep hole in a place where elephants often passed by. At the mouth of the hole, there is a pile of bamboo slices and very skillfully grafted grass. Sure enough, 3 days later, an elephant fell into a hole with its head down and its ass up in the air, unable to move. Cuoi used dirt to cover up the elephant, leaving only the butthole. And cut the elephant's ass into a bigger hole, then just leave it there, only occasionally coming to watch. He said in his heart, "Then I will have an elephant that can fly and travel the world." After the elephant died, crows and kites smelled the meat and immediately invited each other to eat. They crawl through the anus deep into the elephant's body to nibble at the meat inside. Before there were only 5 or 10 children, then gradually there were hundreds of children crawling into the meat bowl every day, and their hearts were very satisfied. I waited until the elephant's meat was almost exhausted, waiting for a lot of birds to get in, then suddenly plugged the elephant's ass. Then Cuoi dug up the ground so that the elephant's skin lay neatly. He rode on the elephant's back and used a stick to lightly hit the elephant's underbelly. Suddenly, the flock of birds inside the elephant's skin flew up, carrying the elephant's skin and Cuoi into the sky. The elephant skin carcass flying in mid-air over long mountains and wide rivers made Cuoi never tired of looking at it. Cuoi kept flying all day, and finally saw a large capital city, with tiled houses lined up closely and countless people passing by. Cuoi wanted to go down and take a look. He patted the elephant's back a few times. When the birds saw the movement above, they were afraid and folded their wings and stopped flying. The elephant skin corpse slowly lowered. It fell in the middle of the dragon yard where mandarins were performing rituals. When the king and all his courtiers saw a man riding an elephant descending from the sky, they were terrified and quickly fell down to worship Cuoi as if they were worshipping stars. They welcomed Cuoi as if they were welcoming a god who had just descended. The king personally took Cuoi into the inner palace and did not dare to sit on the same row. Cuoi happily enjoyed the offerings everyone brought to the table. When he heard Cuoi talk about the mystery of the animal, the king asked with a trembling voice, "Can you let this lady ride on the elephant to see the brocade scene in the world?" Cuoi replied, "Very well, but there are two things that need to be done. One is that the king must change my clothes, because the animal is a bit strange to people, and two is that when going out to sea, you must remember to unbutton the back button for it. Drink water." No one can stop the king's desire. Finally, the elephant's skin carried the king into the air. Out in the middle of the sea, the king remembered Cuoi's advice and opened the button at the bottom to let the elephant quench its thirst. The crows and kites were imprisoned for a long time, but now they saw an opening and all of them flew out. The elephant's skin fell into the sea and soon the king fell into the fish's stomach. And Cuoi wore royal robes to become king of that country. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.